Hello, darling. You found the Velvet Slasher podcast where the art of horror lives. Here we slip past the screams to explore the beauty of horror, the set design, costumes, makeup, and delicious tropes we know and love. I am your hostess in heels, and today we are unlocking the door to the movie The Collector, a film that I fell in love with, even though it left me aching for more. The Collector was released in 2009, and often it's thrown into the torture, home invasion subgenres. The 2000s had so many of these movies. That era has been called a little bit of a dry spell in horror, and that is probably why we saw this torture subgenre really take off. Movies like the Saw franchise or Hostel had instant popularity, but here's the thing about The Collector that I actually feel keeps it in my top horror movies. It has its own kind of visual style and language. It's not gore and torture for the sake of gore and torture. It's methodical. It's part of the ritual of a killer that we don't know, but we're drawn to. It has so much potential, but then massively misses the mark. This probably could have had icon status, and it just made me ache after watching it. And that's why I chose this movie. The missed opportunity and the deep connection with every character that we don't get outside of the reluctant anti-hero of the movie. For those who haven't watched this movie, here's a glimpse into the madness. Arkin is a man in need of money, and he decides he is going to steal a gemstone from the home of a family he's been working for, installing their alarm system. He thinks they're on vacation, but when he shows up, the house is now full of traps and torture devices. The family is imprisoned in their basement, and the torture game is being run by the Collector. And it's here in this claustrophobic house where the real art of the Collector lives. The Collector's traps are artistic and painstakingly designed. They basically are the set. Even though the movie unfolds in this normal suburban home, the traps make it feel like something else altogether, some type of maze or labyrinth. Some people have said it's an extremely violent version of Home Alone. The traps are elaborate and creative. We're talking fish hooks hanging everywhere in a room at eye level, so when you walk in, they stick in your face. And barbed wire strung across rooms, acid on floors, movement-triggered devices to catch anyone who thinks of escaping. One of the most memorable scenes is Arkin trying to escape. When he initially sees what happens, he goes to the front door, it's locked. He tries a couple of other options, and he ends up reaching through a boarded-up window only to have all of the skin of his hand sliced off with hidden razor blades attached to the wood on the windows. The traps give every scene a sense of tension because every step, every opening of a door could be lights out for Arkin. What's achingly frustrating is we see these beautiful traps, but we don't spend any one-on-one time with the Collector. There is no moment of us sitting with him, getting to know him, to watch while he prepares his ritual, to connect with him while he plays classical music and prepares the house. It's devastating. In the deleted scenes, you do get this a little more. You sit with him while he intentionally places the traps. It gives you more connection to him. And I believe from these deleted scenes and also from interviews with the director, Marcus Dunstan, that they clearly wanted us to have a connection with the Collector. But even those deleted scenes don't give us enough. We don't need the Collector to speak. We see this in other killers and other slashers all the time. Michael doesn't say anything to us, but we connect with him as he goes back to his childhood home, lifts up the floorboards and puts his mask on. We never get this from the collector, and it's upsetting because the potential is there. The collector's mask speaks to a methodical, creative, even obsessive mind. It feels handcrafted, like he stitched it himself. There's a minimalist, almost elegance to it, but we don't see him put it on. We don't see the ritual behind it. There are these basic ties on the back of his mask, and one moment of him tying them or even tightening them later in the movie would have given us that intimacy. But since we didn't get that moment, let's talk about where we do get a bit of intimacy: the lighting, the cinematography, and the color palette. One of my favorite things to study in horror is color. The collector uses this palette of very dull gray and black and neutrals, but it's contrasted the entire film with this sharp metallic from all of these different traps. And the entire movie is shot as if the house is mostly dark. So you're seeing the traps as minor reflections off of whatever little light is in the room. Now, the production has used that grainy high contrast that definitely echoes Saw 2, but it never pushes all the way there. And because of this very muted world they've created along with that grainy high contrast, really the main color pops in the movie are red, really the blood, which is jarringly vibrant against all of these dull tones. It's that burgundy shade of red that's very textured, like you can feel it clotting in front of you. It reminds me of those color pop filters in the 2000s where everything was black and white except for one item, which is usually like a yellow rain jacket or red lipstick. And in the collector, that vividness is really given to different shades of red, which is most of the time the blood. However, there is one scene where the mother is imprisoned downstairs in the basement and the collector comes down because Arkin has told her to create a distraction. So she starts screaming and the collector is almost tenderly grabbing her face, and her lips are this vivid shade of red. So it really gives away the era of the movie that any of those red shades are really standing out. And you can tell that Marcus Dunson has just come off of directing 3 Saw movies, because it has that same grainy high contrast where certain colors are really going to stand out. And the lighting supports this really well. We have this dim yellow, shadow heavy, with the splashes of that blood burgundy and these shades of red. It almost feels Caravaggio in some sense, with lighting falling from one specific direction and leaving a lot of mysterious shadow, which is similar to those paintings. And the cinematography as well gives us a sense of a dance. One of my favorite sequences is when Arkin initially breaks into the house and he goes upstairs to the safe in the bathroom, not knowing the collector is there. And then we see Arkin is doing his sneaky thief things and trying to open the safe, and the collector goes to the front door, locks it, and starts coming up the stairs to check over the house. Perhaps he heard Arkin coming up the stairs or something of that nature. Arkin hears the collector and starts hiding. And then the camera does this really incredible pivot to a bird's eye view. So we're watching them dance around each other. We see Arkin hear the collector coming up the stairs. He lowers the mirror. He hides in the closet of the bathroom. The collector enters the bathroom. Then Arkin leaves the closet through another door, and the collector enters that closet. They circle each other without the collector really knowing Arkin is there and Arkin not really understanding who the collector is. The cinematography plays with this throughout the movie, this duality of this slow sneaking of Arkin and the brutality of the collector as he snaps into each room and he rips open the doors because he is in charge of the house in his mind. And Arkin slowly, tediously sneaking around is interrupting the collector's ritual. And because we see this dance throughout the entire movie and we're aware of the traps when not all the characters are, we become a part of that dance as well as we sit on the edge of our seats just waiting. And this is where the movie leans into some of horror's favorite traditions, our beloved horror movie tropes. They're familiar, playful, sometimes frustrating, but they are a part of our collective horror experience, and the collector has several. The first one is those young people getting too hot and bothered, they must get the axe. I knew from the moment I saw the teenage daughter in the beginning of the movie and she starts talking with Arkin that she was probably going to get the axe in the movie. And her death is very tedious. There's a very elaborate scene where she brings home random guy, maybe her boyfriend, back to the house. And it's a slow build-up where they're in the living room and they're being intimate, and then they start narrowly avoiding all of these traps that we as the audience know are there, but they don't know are there. And then the boyfriend gets the axe, and then Arkin fails to save the teenage daughter, and she gets a pretty brutal death as well. Her family, except the youngest sister, also all get the axe because they're the troop of course, the doomed family. So this trope talks about us getting little small glimpses into their life, almost like tragic theater. The fights, the rebellious teens, the wealth, the need for the mom to look perfect, literally doing her own Botox, the dad just trying to be a nice guy. It's all there until inevitably they are slashed up. So then that brings us to Arkin, who is a horror movie trope within himself. Of course, he is our wrong place, wrong time, reluctant anti-hero. Arkin isn't noble. He's a thief. He's down on his luck. He's trying to support his little family. He breaks in. He's committing a crime, but then he gets trapped inside the horror movie, and we have to watch him become a hero, and we start to fall in love with him because he isn't perfect. And I genuinely believe if the collector had a little bit of a backstory, we would have had a completely new duo to fall in love with, because the collector is the absolutely classic horror movie trope of the non-talking masked killer. Michael, Jason, the collector puts on his mask and he doesn't speak to us. It's stripped down because we have no look into his sadistic mind or his backstory or his ritual. What we do have is this symbolism. Through the first part of the movie, Arkin keeps noticing spiders coming into the house. They're in the young daughter's bedroom. They're outside the house. There's a wasp nest outside in one part of the greenhouse, and they are supposed to represent the collector. He is an exterminator in the movie and also an insect person. We see that a little bit in the sequel. So it's a very on-the-nose symbolism. The last two horror movie tropes, I think, are absolutely necessary for horrors to continue. But of course, we have a lot of dumb decisions, right? A lot of people would survive horror movies if they didn't do certain things. For example, one of my favorite dumb decision moments, Arkin is trying to save the mother in the basement, and she ends up opening her eyes and starting to scream, basically botching their getaway and their escape, even when Arkin is clearly trying to help her. Horror needs it. I live off of it. We all love dumb decisions. Then we have the very last horror trope, the stinger ending. To me, this ruined the movie more than the time period it was made in, being filled with other torture home invasion movies, more than a lot of people thinking it was just another Saw movie. The ending really, really botches everything for me. Just when you think Arkin escapes and the collector will escape after blowing up the house and they'll both get away, the collector gets to Arkin in the ambulance. It's really frustrating because I don't think it's necessary for the ending to be like this in order to set up the next movie. So that leads me to our final review segment of the podcast, which is what went right, what went wrong, my own emotional reaction as a horror enthusiast. So the sets, the cinematography, the lighting, especially the sets with the meticulous traps, are very stunning. There's a creativity to the way things are laid out, taking these elaborate traps and putting them inside someone's home. It's really interesting, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. So there's a creativity the way everything's laid out. The collector character is fascinating with the mask and the silence, the ritual, but we spend so little time with him, like I said before. I almost wish they would have spent an equal amount of time letting us connect with Arkin and the collector, allowing us to see the full dance, the full hunt, and giving us a chance to root for both of them. They could have really created an entire franchise off of them kind of hunting each other and trying to figure each other out. And that's why the ending where Arkin is in the ambulance and the young daughter Hannah gets away and she's still alive, and then the collector gets away. Once they ruin that with the collector ending up capturing Arkin in the ambulance, it kind of ruins what I think would have been a perfect setup for a sequel, similar to Friday the 13th Part 2 continuation. The collector could have gone back to his lair alone with his ritual completely interrupted because he gets to take no one home with him for his collection. And then he crashes out, leading to what he does in the second film, The Collection. So it's a little spoiler if you haven't watched The Collection, with him going out, having this massive trap that acts as a ton of people at once and bring the survivor home, putting them in this elaborate maze. And maybe he's created all of this because of what happened in that first movie where he doesn't get to take anyone home. But when he takes Arkin home, it's a little dissatisfying. It's a little bit frustrating because we don't get to see what it would look like if Arkin gets away, the collector goes back, and he's trying to create the same satisfaction from his ritual that he's probably had throughout his time doing it, and he can't. And so he's creating all of these different things, trying to figure out his own satiation. Then we could also have a dual plotline where Arkin is terrified the collector is going to come for him because the collector knows what his face looks like. And Arkin and the collector hunting each other back and forth. And we get a little bit of that in the collection, but again, it kind of has this reluctant anti-hero where Arkin doesn't even get any type of normalcy before going out and hunting the collector again. It would have saved it for me, and I think it would have led to more movies and probably more interest from production companies, which are key to getting sequels and prequels out, as we all know. Now to talk about the Saw connection. So Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton, the writer, came off of doing 3 Saw movies in a row. Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton have a very intense amount of movies that they've been a part of. They've been a part of a lot of really incredible horror movies. So it's not a surprise to me that they originally pitched this as kind of a Saw prequel, because you can see a lot of that. They went through a little bit of a rewrite, obviously, where it still kind of was that Saw prequel. And I believe if they would have committed fully and said, instead of trying to do a Saw prequel, let's create a completely different world with a completely different character, I think that would have been a really amazing idea, and it would have created a franchise that's a little bit stronger than what we have today. Although I will say I have seen this film getting a little bit of a renaissance lately, which makes me happy. So final rating, 3.5 of 5. I rewatch it. I love it. The potential of it could have been a lot more. And that is what is haunting me this week, which is our last segment of the podcast. What's haunting me is the idea of wasted potential. The Collector most likely could have been an instant classic, a film that became an even larger franchise, an entire world. And I can't stop thinking about that. That's exactly why I chose it for the first episode of the podcast. I myself don't want to miss opportunities in my own life because of my own fear or nerves or need for perfectionism. So I'm creating something that I, as a film student and horror enthusiast, would really love to listen to. So this week, what haunts me is the tension between what could be and what is, the tension that creates horror in real life and in film. Our time together is almost spent, so let's start crawling back to the real world. Overall, The Collector is so much more than just blood and traps and the home invasion torture subgenre. It's almost a study in claustrophobic set design. It's beauty in color and lighting and in maximum tension without relying too much on dialogue. If you love horror as much as I do, this film definitely deserves a second look, a rewatch with fresh eyes. Thank you for finding me in the shadows for this first episode. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep climbing into the art of horror together. Oh, and check your locks tonight. Bye, darling.